Welcome to a new episode of TTG Conversations 5 Questions video series. I'm Karen Yu, Group Editor of TTG Asia Media. This episode is all about airport developments in preparation for the future of travel. And taking us through this topic is Sumesh Patel, President for Asia Pac at SITA. It's great having you here, Sumesh.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me.
I've got 5 questions for you, and here's the first. Now, IATA has projected 8 billion air travelers by 2040. What does this mean for the airports of the world, particularly those serving major gateways?
So, Karen, I think the good news is that, this was a projection from IATA even before the COVID. And, everyone was worried that will COVID have an impact and will this impact the growth which was projected by IATA? But clearly, it has not. And in fact, the air travel is back on track. And with IATA expecting, in fact, 4.7 billion people to travel in 2024, clearly breaking the pre-pandemic record, right? So when this happens, there is a lot of stress on the infrastructure, and especially airports. And it's a bit challenging that for airports to continue building new terminals, new airports. Yes, they can do a bit of expansion, but it's not possible everywhere in the world. So clearly, what airports of the world are really focusing on is looking at the digital travel, right? So how the digital travel can help them meet this, really growth in terms of the air transport. And in addition to the digital transformation, so basically they look at the digital travel or, the digital technologies to help them firstly on the operational efficiencies, which is really key to make sure that they run the overall operation efficiently. Looking at technologies which can help them manage the frictionless experience for the passengers, and of course for the border clearance. The second area where we see the airports will focus a lot is on sustainability. So how can they track, report, and optimize energy and fuel consumption emissions? And helping the net zero future using both for the operational data and AI and flight optimization service. And the third area, which we see that in the future, which will help, is also exploring the new ways of emerging technologies. And these emerging technologies are basically in urban air mobility, such as VetriPro, turnaround optimization, baggage tracking, and of course, much more. So clearly, the airports are really preparing themselves to embrace the digital technology to help them meet this travel requirement as they move forward.
Okay. Can you talk about the construction projects that are ongoing today and highlight 2 that you feel are most important for Asia, regional, or global air travel?
So clearly, there are a number of airports. If we see somewhere close to where we are in our region in Asia Pacific, Singapore is for one, clearly expanding a lot. We see a number of airports in Philippines. There are new airports coming up, or the existing airports are being upgraded. Similarly, in India, you see a lot of privatization and a lot of expansion clearly, and of course in Australia and China too. So all around, there are upgrades happening in these airports to help them manage the volumes which will come through in terms of air transport passengers. As you rightly said, the IATA projection is 40 billion, and this year is going to surpass. So clearly, the airports are really investing to ensure the airport expansion. But in addition to the physical expansion, what the airports are also looking at is to implement the technologies which can help them meet this requirement, not just in terms of operational, but also how they can provide the passenger a seamless experience. And one of our recent IT trend survey which we did, which clearly showed that by 2026, over 50% of the airport, they plan to implement biometrics at check-in and the bag drop. And of course, 70% of the airlines are expected to have biometric ID management in place.
Good point there. But are all governments and airports adopting all the technology that's already available, especially biometric clearance? And what is holding back, complete adoption of biometric clearance?
So one thing which is really key in terms of implementing the biometrics is, how does the airport and the immigration and the government and custom collaborate, right? So in certain countries where we've seen that the agencies work together, they are really fast and advanced in terms of the adoption. So, one key thing is clearly, working together. And, from SITA perspective, we are really committed in helping because we are neutral. We work with airline, airports, and government. So, for example, we work with almost 1,000 airports in the world. Almost every airline use some or the other services from SITA. And we also work with about 70 governments. So, our role is, to bring all of these stakeholders together and help accelerate the digitalization of the air transport industry. And one of the recent initiatives which we've taken is that we've invested in a company called Indicio. Basically, it's a global market leader in decentralized identity technology. And what it does is that this uniquely enables the addition of the travel documents such as visa, boarding passes, frequent flyer accounts to the passenger digital identity. So it helps, a seamless passenger experience both in terms of the airport, but also at the borders. And one example which I can share, where we have implemented this recently is at the Aruba Island, where, the passenger, even before arriving the airport, can have their pre-clearance done through immigration. So it's through the mobile where they can validate all the credentials. So when they get into the country, they have a walkthrough experience in the immigration. And not only that, the same technology can also be extended to the other, areas. So, for example, the restaurants, nightclubs. So they can basically use the same identity to access various different, where they go and travel.
That's wonderful in terms of convenience for a traveler, huh? Several years back, Beijing Capital International Airport presented a hot case study on biometric deployment. Are there other more recent outstanding airport digitalization journeys that we can learn from?
So, we were really proud to implement this at the Beijing airport just before the COVID hit us. But clearly, when we implemented this, at Beijing airport was able to process British Airways flight, a 380 aircraft with 400 passengers, and they could board all of them in 20 minutes. So clearly, the technology shows that, it is here and it is helping to facilitate the airport operation, but also enhance the passenger experience. And recent past, we have done a lot of such implementations. So for example, in Thailand, we have implemented this in Bangkok Airport and 6 other regional airports. Similarly, India, where in December we won a project to implement that at 12 airports in phase 1 and another 28 in phase 2, so almost 40 airports. So clearly, we see this technology being deployed not just in Asia, but globally. So, by this, one of the examples where we had implemented this, the airport was able to increase the capacity by 25% by implementing the technology. So clearly, it helps both in terms of the airport, in terms of their operational efficiencies and enhancing processing more number of passengers. But from the passenger perspective, they have a walkthrough experience. So it's a win-win.
Right. Well, last question for you, Sumesh. As a frequent traveler yourself, how do you hope to see technology granting you a smoother journey in the future?
So for me, I could relate that to something which we are already trialing. So, not just my air travel. So, if I can use my digital ID in every step of my journey, so be it train, be it cruise, wherever I'm going, or even hotel check-in, how can I use the same digital technology or my digital identity for my end-to-end passenger travel experience? And this is not something which is future, but it is now. So, we are working with ICAO and trying to build this digital identity, working with airlines and airports, which can help make this happen in near future. And I would say maybe in next 2 years' time.
That's wonderful. And that's all the questions I have for you, Sumesh. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Karen.
Past and future episodes of TTG Conversations 5 Questions can be found on the TTG YouTube channel. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.